He's always on the run. I like to rename these episodes. So we're on season 20 of Sister Wives, and episode 1 I renamed Sister Witches. It was a term Cody used. Episode 2 I used the term triple divorce. That's what I would name it if I was TLC, because that again is a term Cody used in that episode. And this episode Mary actually gave us the title, which is, and these are titles that I've made up myself. TLC does name every single episode something, but I find them very dull, and so that's why I've decided to rename them myself. So episode 3 came from Mary. He's always on the run. Loved that bit. But let's get straight into the episode. Get yourself a hot drink. I have a coffee here in my Wonder Woman mug. I feel like this episode had a lot going on, but at the same time, a lot of it was filler. Like, it could have been condensed down to 10 minutes, everything that happened in this episode. I'm just going to take a sip of my drink. And let's get straight into it. So I'm not going to go scene for scene. I'm just going to talk about stuff that stood out to me, like the meat of the episode. So last episode was a to be continued. They're driving into a tornado. Christine's daughter, McKelty, and her husband, Tony. That everyone was fine. So it was like very dramatic, and there were big lumps in the window screen where they had actually driven into a tornado and had to pull off and find shelter somewhere. But everyone was thankfully very fine, and it was very interesting. It was interesting to see, is that rain that did those big welts on the glass? Is that how strong the rain is because of the wind propelling it towards your windscreen? They didn't really talk too much about that. And in England, we don't have tornadoes, so I had no idea what had caused that on their window screen. I still don't know. But that happened at the beginning of the episode. And then McKelty got to her new home and was talking about she wants to be nearer her siblings and her children to be raised with their cousins, and that's what she really wants. But Christine was finding it hard because obviously McKelty has moved away from her. She moved to where McKelty was, and now McKelty's moved to where the rest of her extended family is. And Christine was saying she's not going to move. People keep asking her, are you going to move after McKelty? But she's saying, I've still got kids here, and obviously I will just go and travel to see my children. I didn't see much of Janelle this episode, I don't feel. Janelle's daughter, Maddie, is pregnant. She's having a baby. And weirdly, the baby's due date is on her brother, Garrison, who passed away. It's on the day he died. Is the due date of her new baby. So they were talking about, there's something about that that's really special, like the circle of life with that. We then had Mary speed dating last episode. This episode, they're doing paintings, her and her friends. Mary's bits within it, I feel, are filler. I don't feel they add much to the episode. And I feel like they should just really talk, they sit her down and have her say, like, how do you really feel? You married this man and you were in this relationship, just you and him. You then agreed for him to marry more wives, sister wives. He married 3 other women. He then left you and went off with the youngest wife. How do you actually feel about that? And then it was revealed that Mary doesn't have a relationship with any of the wives. She doesn't have a relationship with Cody at all, and they had one daughter together, and that daughter is grown up, so they don't need to be in each other's company talking about custody or anything like that, because their only child is an adult. But she also has nothing to do with any of the sister wives. And I feel like for the last few seasons, they've made out that Mary and Robin are so close and they're such good friends. So why doesn't she have anything to do with Robin anymore? They're not explaining that. When she gave up on Cody in that relationship, because he had basically like not gone near her for 10 years. And so when she was saying, are we going to make this work? And he was saying, no. And Robin kept saying, hold on, he might change his mind, which he didn't. He was never going to change his mind on that. And then now that she's gone off on her own, Mary, like, no one's talking to her. I can understand with Christine and Janelle, because they did say they had a difficult relationship. The first 3 wives, when they all lived in one home together, it was difficult. It was arguments. There was drama in that. And so it was much better when they lived in their individual houses, but they didn't get that close to Mary. But we had this real sense that Mary and Robin were like best friends, talking on the phone all the time. So I don't understand why they don't talk at all. And Robin and Cody have now moved from one beautiful house to another beautiful home, and no one knew about the move. That was odd as well. It's so disjointed now because no one talks to anyone. We had Mary as a little bit of a go-between for a while. You had Robin and Cody. You then have Mary in the middle. You had Janelle and Christine. And Mary's role within it was a little bit of a go-between. Like she was talking to Robin. Robin was saying, hold on. And then she's talking to Janelle and saying, right, how are we going to sell this land? And she was a go-between. But now she's on an island on her own. Kristen and Janelle are very close together. And then, of course, Cody is still married to one wife, which is the youngest wife, Robin. They're still together. So she's kind of a bit cast out within it. So when Cody and Robin moved, they didn't tell any of the wives that they were moving. They must have told Christine, because Christine said she found out on social media, but Cody and Christine have a daughter together. Well, they have a million kids together. He's had loads of kids, obviously, by having 4 wives. But they have one child that's still living at home together. So they share custody of this child called Truly. So he must have said, I'm moving house to her surely in person because the girl's going to be going to a new address. You're dropping her off at the new house. But they didn't really go into that. Can we get to Mary's mad friends just for a little second? So like I was saying, with Mary, all her bits I feel are filler, and it's always her and a friend going speed dating, chatting, doing something fun. It's the fun filler element of the episode. So if it's getting a bit dark and heavy, you know, the next scene's going to be Mary for the fun filler. But I want stuff more serious from Mary. I want them to actually sit her down, the production, and get her to talk about how she truly feels, because it feels a lot like brushed under the rug. And then in her sit down episodes, it feels like she wants to say more and she'll like release more information. Like she gave us the term "he's always on the run" this episode. So this episode, she was doing some painting with her friends. It all got a bit innuendo, a bit out of hand, and then one of her friends' painting was very interesting. If you've watched the episode, you'll know what I mean. She drew 3 things on the canvas and it felt a bit trying to get airtime, because obviously if you're on a reality TV show like Sister Wives that is very loved, gets loads of viewership, then people are going to connect onto you because they also want to be famous. So it felt like, okay, you know this is going to be filmed because there's a massive camera crew in the room with you. And so then you decide to draw this picture of Cody on the canvas when no one is drawing pictures of him, no one is talking about him, and you're drawing a picture of him to, it felt like kind of embarrass Mary in the process a little bit as well, because she didn't really know what to say about it, and then get the airtime for it because you know it's going out on the show Sister Wives. I just feel if it wasn't being filmed, her friend would have never drawn that. Her friend wouldn't have drawn Cody and that would have been it. But because it was being, I don't know, I didn't love that. I didn't love that at Mary's expense, because they were all just having a laugh and it was very light-hearted. And then that kind of brought it down a little bit, I felt, because then you're putting Mary in an awkward situation. I just thought that was very bizarre what her friend painted. Very odd. So that was kind of Mary's storyline. That was it. But she did say about Cody moving house, because they moved house a lot, is she said he's always on the run, like a criminal, like a fugitive. When she said that line, I was like, it's like she's saying he always flees. But they were saying that every time something bad happens in his life, he moves house. And he feels that when moving house, all the bad things will go away and they can kind of stay, like that negative energy can stay in the old house. But of course it doesn't. It follows you because it's stuff that's actually going on in your actual life. So him and Robin moving, Janelle was basically saying like he has this thing about moving, that he always moves. And I think last episode she touched upon it as well, that he thinks it's going to kind of change his life and it never ends up going that way because your problems still follow you. They're just still there. There was no talk of Coyote Pass, which I loved. Thank God we had an episode without having to hear the words Coyote Pass. Thank you. And then what else really happened here? I can't think of anything that was that interesting. Oh my God. Tony. McKelty's husband, Tony. McKelty is Christine and Cody's daughter. Her husband made a comment which was very interesting. So they were talking about Maddie's having another baby. And so McKelty was saying, well, why don't we have another baby to compete? Because both of us have 3 children. So she's going to have 4 children soon. Well, we need to have another baby so we can have 4 children. And he said, absolutely not. No. Like, he obviously doesn't want a 4th child. Also, they had a daughter and then they had twins. So that's got to be a lot. All of a sudden, there's 3 kids in the house. And so he said... He was saying, no. And then he said, I learnt that from Cody, actually, that the more you halve yourself. And then she kind of spoke over him because I don't know if she could hear what he was saying. And so then she was saying, oh, I'm not saying like have 6 or 7. I'm just saying 4. But I think what his point was is Cody said to him, don't compromise in a relationship, because the more you, and Cody has spoken about this, the more you compromise, the more you halve yourself. So if you go, I'll just do what you want, you're halving yourself. I'll just do what you want, you halve yourself again, until you're like so small that you always end up doing what the other person wants to do, because you've compromised so much, you've given in to everything, you then have nothing left. And so then when you put your foot down, no one's going to listen to you because they're not used to you standing up for yourself, and you've compromised so much at that point anyway. And Cody has spoken about that before, about giving the wives too much control within their lives, that they all lived. So how the sister wives worked is they originally lived in one house with him. They then all got their own houses. So they had 4 houses, and he would go to each house, and that was it. And each wife, her house was her house, her domain. She could say who came out and in and out, you know, it was her thing. And so he said by doing that, he thinks that didn't work for polygamy reasons, is that you should live in one house and the man should be the leader of the household. And the other wives were saying, well, we've never had that before, so why would that kind of work for us now? Because it's never worked before. And I felt that was what Tony was kind of saying. Like, I agree with Cody on that, is that you can't compromise too much, because you halve yourself half to become smaller and smaller, and then you have no control in anyone else's life. But obviously, you know, Cody has been through a triple divorce. So taking advice from someone who has had 4 wives, 3 of them have left him, he's got 1 wife now, is not the same situation as you and your 1 wife. Like, it's completely different. Like, I wouldn't be taking advice by a polygamist. I just wouldn't, because I'm in a monogamous relationship. So monogamy and polygamy are completely different concepts. And I would never take advice from a polygamist of how to like harness your 4 wives like they're little ponies, like how to get control of these ones when you've just got 1 wife yourself. I just find that interesting, that comment. He was like, oh yeah, about like compromise, because that is what Cody has been saying. He's been saying, I compromise too much. And with like 4 wives, you can't really do that. Maybe you can do it more in monogamy, but you can't do it in, maybe you can do it, yeah, monogamy, you can compromise, but in polygamy, you can't. I just think polygamy is such a flawed concept, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not coming from the point of view of, I think it could work, but Cody just mismanaged his wives, or he favoured 1 wife over the other, and then it can never work if you do that. I'm from the school of, it's never going to work. Having 4 wives, having millions of children, keep marrying younger and younger so you can have more and more kids. It's just making more and more discontent, because they all talk about this resentment they have to him because he doesn't come to their things. So if there's like a birthday party, he might be like, well, I can't come to that and I can't come to that. But obviously, what's he got, 18 kids or something? He's got like a massive amount of kids, and now they've all had children. So obviously he has more, you know, more children than days of the week. He can't even dedicate 1 day of the week to each of his children. That's what we're talking about. So the idea that it could have worked is just shocking to me. I gotta be honest. And in England, we don't have this huge Mormon community where we have, you know, in America, you have Mormon wives, and then you have the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and they talk about Mormonism on that, and being from families that married, you know, 1 man, multiple wives. We don't have that in England, so it's not something that I've ever seen on TV, really. And you have Seeking Sister Wives. God, you have so many like shows about sister wives in America, I suppose because you have quite a big Mormon community there, whereas we don't in England. So the whole idea to me is just so strange and alien that anyone would think that would work. Like, just in a practical sense, how is that going to work? 1 man, 4 wives, a load of kids, load of grandchildren. How is that not going to have breed resentment, because you cannot, if you have more children than days of the week, you're not going to be able to see them all, are you? So then they're going to resent that. They're going to be like, oh, well, you went to her birthday party, why can't you come to my birthday party? Also, all his children, with having so many children, different job offers in different places, they've all spread out across America is huge, so they have to take flights to visit each other. So again, how is that possible? It's just so flawed. It's like when they were talking before, like Christine and Janelle, when they had the breakup with him like 2 seasons ago, and they were talking about how he could have made polygamy work. No, I just don't think it can possibly work. And I think especially when your children are no longer living in the house with you and they all move to different states, that's impossible then. That's really difficult. None of the wives have more than 7 children, so they can at least dedicate 1 day a week to each kid. They do have quite a lot of kids, the wives, but none of them have more than 7, whereas he obviously has loads. So I just think the concept of polygamy is so flawed. So when they talk about, we need to make polygamy legal, which is something Janelle mentioned last episode, she was saying, I've broken up with him. I've never had a legal marriage to him because it's illegal in America, polygamy. And so we had these spiritual marriages, which don't actually mean anything on paper. They're just through your church. In England, we call them blessings, because some venues in England can't do proper weddings, so you just have a blessing wedding instead. So they're just blessings, so they're not legally binding. So she said, so then when me and him separated, he didn't need to give me anything because I wasn't legally married to him. But if we made polygamy legal, then, well, she said, I think a lot of men wouldn't do it. If they made it legal, that a lot of men would be like, oh no, I'm not splitting my assets 4 ways. Absolutely not. So she was saying a lot of men just wouldn't do polygamy. But if it was made legal, then that means if the wives left, if they were abused, if something went wrong, they would be entitled to some of the money because they put money in, because all the wives in Sister Wives have worked. So they've put money in, so they'd be entitled to some money out of it. But that doesn't happen because it's not legal. It's not a legal thing. You don't have any kind of footing to stand on. And she was saying, I would have got my money out and now I haven't because we were never legally married. And I do kind of get that. Although you can do that with contracts. You could just buy a house but do it through a solicitor and make sure you've all got a share of something, as opposed to just giving money as more of like a gift to people. Because I believe Janelle gave Robin some money for her house, and I don't know if she ever got that money out of it. Now that house is sold, I have no idea what happened with that. But I just think it's flawed. It's just so flawed. I don't think it should be legalised. I'm not one of those people that's reviewing the series like, he just mismanaged his wives and I think it should be made legal. No, I don't know how that would ever possibly work. And I think it's too open to control and abuse. And that is something they do keep talking about, Christine and Janelle, is the legalisation of polygamy. And that has always been a theme in Sister Wives. They have always spoken about that and lobbying the government to make it legal. And that's one thing that I don't think I'll ever, it's just not my culture. I don't think I will ever agree with that. I wasn't raised Mormon, so I don't think I would ever think that it should be legalised. I just, very odd, that whole situation. And you can do it through contracts instead of a legal marriage. You could just, every asset you buy together, make sure there's contracts to say we're not buying it together, we are separate entities, so if we get divorced we'll both get some money from it. But they didn't do that, so that's why now with the divorce, well, there's like no divorce. With the separation, there's so much struggle and problems with money with all of them. They can't just like say, oh, buy and go, because they need to try and get the money out of it. But doesn't seem to be like a legal way of them being able to do it. So yeah, I'm not like, I think polygamy's great. This episode really didn't have much to talk about, to be perfectly honest with you, but I just wanted to raise that point about, because I think I didn't raise it last episode, and that's when Janelle was talking about it should be legalised. And I just think it's a failed concept, the idea of polygamy, the idea that a man can have 4 wives, keep marrying more wives to have more children, the idea that people are going to be happy in that structure. They're all showing in this season saying we've been desperately unhappy from the start, but we think it should be legalized for other people. For other people for what? For other people to be desperately unhappy as well? But I suppose you're saying for legal protection for people who are going to do that. But they have all spoken about how unhappy it makes you, because you're always thinking about like what he's doing over there in her house, and oh, she's getting more than I'm getting out of this, and she's getting better treatment than me. How unfair. The office, Robin's office. So Cody said that as soon as him and Robin got together, she let him have his own style within the house, and that in the other wives' houses he really just went with the flow with whatever they wanted, and sometimes there'd be like conflict would arise about things, but with Robin she said, I want you to put your mark on this home as well, and I'm going to give you your own home office. Now Robin had the bigger home, so she obviously had a spare bedroom that she could convert into a home office for him, whereas the other wives didn't. They, their bedrooms were full. I think if he'd have said to Mary, can I have a home office at your house? She would have done it. She would have done it the same day and said 100%. And she would have given him that home office. So he made a point that Robin gave him a home office in her house, and none of the other wives did that for him. So it was kind of a bit of a put down to the other wives, but I think that's very clever of Robin. I mean, if you're having to share someone, which already is an unfair concept, like that you're going to share with 3 other women the same man, then if you have the home office in your house, of course he's going to spend more time at your house because he works at your house. So of course you'll say, oh honey, just tell her you can't stay at her house tonight. You have to spend another night at my house because you're working. You're busy working. She should understand that. And then all of a sudden you've got so much more control because you've got the home office in your house. And maybe the others didn't put home offices because they just thought, oh, like Robin's already done that. So what, is he going to have 4 separate offices? He'd probably say, well, my paperwork's in this one and my laptop's in this one. Like, it wouldn't work. So, and they never talk about what he does for work. It's so secretive, the show. They share so much of their lives, yet so little at the same time. And we still watch for some reason. We don't know what he does for a living. I don't know what the other women do for a living for money. And we don't know what their religion is, because everyone thinks it's Mormonism, but they won't say Mormonism. It's very bizarre. But I thought that was cunning. The home office thing, when he let that slip, because I've never heard that before, that Robin gave him his home office. Never heard that before. And it was really him using that to put down the other wives, but it really revealed more about Robin. That was clever. It was a clever thing. You're already you have to kind of cheat the rules because the rules are unfair. The idea that 3 women could share one man is unfair. It's not going to work out. So then she's just gaining the system in her own way by having the home office and saying, okay, well, I want him to spend more time with me, so I'm going to do this. And I'm sure the other wives in their own way did things to entice him to stay longer at their houses, because they all married him and they were all in love with him. I know they're all separated now and all kind of trashing each other, but there was a point where they did all love him. So I'm sure they in their own way did things to make him, spend more time with them. Like, it's a normal thing though. It's not even like cunning. It's a normal human emotion. And Mary was talking about on the Tamron show, she was saying that jealousy is something you are banned. The church says you are not allowed to feel any jealousy of your sister wives. But of course, jealousy is a really human emotion and you're going to be jealous of them. And that's just what it is. But it's a sin. You cannot be jealous. That's how the church teaches it. The church they used to go to taught it to them. And she said, I've only just realised that now, how ridiculous that is. And at 50 years old, I'm kind of thinking back and thinking about how foolish that was to expect us not to be jealous of this system that's obviously going to make us jealous. We're sharing our husband intimately. He's having more children. And Mary herself, wanted more children. She couldn't have more children. So to watch all the other wives, them getting pregnant and having babies, of course she would have been jealous of that, but you're not allowed to be jealous. And that's something that Cody has spoken about before, but as like a positive, that you shouldn't be jealous. That the reason sister wives and polygamy doesn't work out is people let their jealousy get in the way. And if they could only get past their jealousy, then it would work out. But I just think that's impossible, because of course you're going to be jealous of everyone, of course. Anyway, I have been babbling. Oh my God, 20 minutes. Sorry. I know I'm a bit behind. We're on episode 5 is out already. So I'm going to sit down, find the time to watch them and put them up before the end of this week. For this end of this week, I will be caught up on Sister Wives and I'll have the videos on the channel. But it's just finding the time to like sit down. They're over an hour long, some of the episodes. I'm like, but sit down and have the time. I have like a baby and a toddler, so I'm trying to find time when they're asleep. Like now I'm filming this because they're both napping. So when they both sleep at the same time, then I can sit down, film a video. Before I turned record on the camera, I didn't think I was going to sit down here and do a whole speech on polygamy and my opinions, but I just was sitting here chatting like I'm on FaceTime to you, just chatting my face off. So there you go. So I think from the start it's a failed concept, polygamy, so it can never truly work. So I'm not coming at this whole thing as it could have been a fairy tale, it could have worked, everyone could have been happy, it could have been amazing. Oh, what a shame it isn't. Because the episodes, because obviously now 3 of his wives had left him, those 3 wives are kind of picking over the bones of the relationship and looking back and thinking, well, he did this wrong and that wrong. And then he's looking back at his relationships with them and saying, this went wrong, this is why the breakdown happened. If those things hadn't happened, if we had reacted differently to things, then we could still be together. Whereas I'm coming from the opinion of, they were never going to work out. They were never going to be happy because polygamy, I don't know how you can be happy within that. This felt like a repeat of last episode, just with the new information that Maddie's pregnant and then Cody and Robin have moved house. But we already know that they were going to anyway. Let's not recap every scene and do anything like that. But next episode, I have no idea. I don't know what is on next episode, so I can't say like how I feel about it or anything. But let me know, do you think actually, no Hannah, you're wrong. I think polygamy can work and it can work with everyone being happy. I'm not saying it all ends to divorce because obviously it doesn't. They're all from polygamous families, I believe, apart from Robin. So they've all seen it work in their own childhoods and their own lives around them. I just don't know if you can be really happy within that. And the reason they left him is because they weren't happy. And also so many wives. 4. Like, it's not just him and 2 women and they're all living together in one house trying to make it work. It's 4 wives is what he had. Kind of crazy. But I suppose that's why they got their own reality TV show. Anyway, I am gonna, this is getting, oh my God. Just about to say, this is getting to half an hour. That's too much. We're past half an hour. I'm doing a video every day in October, HANOWEEN. So come back tomorrow and I'll have another video up here. This has been a babble and a scrabble and I'm gonna end it here and I'll see you tomorrow for another video.